People who have been Santa at the mall. What's the creepiest thing a kid has asked for Christmas? I have been Santa for several seasons. I had a special needs young woman, approximate age of 40, emotional of 12 perhaps, asked me to make her boyfriend quit hitting her. I told a lady who was helping me to get the deputy sheriff at the event to come see me. I whispered to him what she had said. He came back 10 minutes later and asked if I would speak to her in a private area. There the deputy and Santa got a clearer but very disturbing picture of how she had been repeatedly abused. In May the deputy let me know the offender had been sentenced to 8 years and the girl had been relocated to new care facility. That's Santa magic right there. My friend's dad used to be a Santa. He couldn't stop crying after a shift one time. When we finally got him to say what was wrong, he said a little girl told him she didn't want any item for Christmas. She wanted a new daddy who won't touch her. Her dad was there with her. Friend's dad had to enact the emergency protocols. Girl didn't want to talk to police about it unless Santa was with her. He heard some crap. That was a very brave little girl and your friend's dad did good that day. Just sad rather than creepy. Kid came in and wanted nothing except from a Matchbox car. He told me how every week he heard his mom sneak into his bedroom and take the pocket money that she had given him to buy cigarettes. I felt so terrible for him that I gave him 3-4 different presents rather than just one. My dad did the same thing. I would get an allowance, put it in this plastic bag which also kept all my loose change. He'd come in after I got my allowance from my mom early morning when he headed off to work and just shake the crap out of that bank. When I got to 3rd grade I just started leaving the money on my dresser so I could get some sleep. Not a Santa. My little brother, when he was around 5 or 6 years old, asked Santa for a vacuum cleaner and a rope. Santa gave my mom a really weird look, but my brother loved to vacuum the living room. He would get mad if anybody else did it and say, I was gonna do it. The rope was so he could tie a wagon to the back of his bike and use it as a trailer, if I recall correctly. But Santa didn't know that. Though my brother was some kind of slave child, possibly seeking to hang himself. My boyfriend is a Santa for private events and has been doing it for over 20 years, so he has a bunch of stories. He hasn't told me any creepy stories. He was doing a private adults only party, so all of the ladies were being a bit flirty, but nothing crazy. Santa Baby started playing and the ladies dragged him onto the dance floor. He shimmies a bit and goes to sit back down when a woman grabs him and starts grinding on him. He tries to get away from her in character, what will Mama Claus think, etc. But she keeps on grinding and starts to moan. Finally, the hostess notices and gets her away from him, but she kept trying to get to him the rest of the night. The saddest story was definitely when a little kid, 4 or 5, crawled into his lap and, with a big, sweet smile, asked Santa, "Can you make my mommy love me?" My BF has to hug the kid so he wouldn't see him tearing up and told him that that was a request for a higher power and that he and Mama Claus would pray about it. Kid seemed happy with that response. That last story broke my heart. I believe every child should get the chance to experience unconditional love from their parent. It's so unfortunate to know that some kids don't get this, which makes it even more difficult for them to accept another person's love later in the future. I wasn't a mall Santa, but one of the elves who took the pictures. We had 2 Santas. One was narcoleptic and we had to keep waking him up, and the other would bring his own homemade bags of coal to give to the kids who would cry, and we'd have to try to seize all the bags before he started his shift. That was a fun job. The falling asleep Santas are awful. Ours was so old he'd fall asleep while holding babies. We had to use spotters in case Santa lost his grip. Not me, not creepy, but a bit haunting. My dad used to be the Macy's Santa in NY. He had a kid come in who wanted his brother's cancer to go away. Brother came to the store too. A couple weeks later. Of course Santa has no control over these things, but being the Macy's Santa has some power. He was able to get the store to let them come in at a special time and pick out pretty much whatever they wanted. It was magical, and he still has the pictures. He would regularly write to them as Santa until after the brother died and went to visit him as Santa before he died. Tried to stay in touch with the family, but I think it was just too sad and the magic was gone. This was touching. Good on your dad. Not a Santa. but I remember being in hospitals a lot as a kid with serious stomach issues. I remember asking a mall Santa if I could get better and not die once when I was about 8 or 9 years old. When the mall Santa looked at me sadly and said he couldn't do that, almost in tears. I asked if my old dog that died as a puppy could be brought back as a zombie so we could both be dead together, and if I could come back as a zombie too so I could stay with my parents so they wouldn't be sad. Looking back, that was really creepy and I think I broke the poor guy's heart. My dad plays a mall Santa and I used to be the photographer. Watching the older women flirt with my dad was highly uncomfortable and creepy. I've been the Easter bunny and the amount of getting hit on is weird. And the amount of women that just put their boobs in your face when they are messing with their kid. It's all freaking weird. I was Santa for corporate holiday parties one year. I was in my 30s but used a spray for my beard. Looked lifelike. Kids dug it, so did one mom aunt who threw a kid off my lap. Hers, I hope. And whispered that she wanted Santa to frick her from behind while pulling her hair. She didn't seem to be drunk. I was very uncomfortable. Then the meeting planner told me she does that every year. I wonder what childhood Christmas experiences she had while growing up. My uncle was a mall Santa for a while. He said that the worst thing he was asked for by a child was, "Can you get daddy to come home?" He also had quite a few kids tug on his beard, which was a real beard, to verify that he was actually Santa. Looks like that scene in Elf did its damage, eh? I wasn't a Santa but my roommate was. This was at a spot in East Brooklyn, a super impoverished area riddled with a lot of drugs and violence. He said it was disturbing how many kids had literally nothing, so they asked for the most basic things, or they just asked to get out of crappy situations. He said stuff like this was common. "I wish my mom would stop hitting me. I wish my brother was still alive. He got shot. I wish we had enough money for a microwave. I wish my daddy would stop doing H." Stuff like that was everywhere. I was the Santa for an office party. It was my first year with the company and apparently the tradition went that the newest guy had to wear the suit. Also something about how the suit was cursed. Anyhow, skip forward to the party. I'm going around taking pictures with people I barely knew at the time, and then it gets to where presents were being handed out. Now I had sat in the back because the CEO was the one handing out presents, didn't want to confuse people where the real money was, lol. And minding my own business. This woman, think mid-40s kinda cougar Y, walks up to me drunk out of her mind and she sits on my lap. Now I'm all for keeping character, so I ask, "Why hello, what would you like for Christmas?" And she says, without hesitation, "I'd love for my husband to frick me in the butt while you watched." Now, when presented with the opportunity, I maintained composure and politely declined while attempting to get her off my lap. After she said it's fine, my husband's good with it, let me get him, and that's when she screams out pat at the top of her lungs. I crap you not, the whole party heard, and turned to see the new guy with the CEO's wife on his lap. Now remember when I said cursed? Apparently this wasn't the first time, and others had accepted the offer. I still work there. Not a Santa, but I worked at a mall taking photos of kids visiting Santa, so I heard a lot. I don't remember anything super creepy. Several kids asked for their parents to be home for Christmas. I live next to a huge US Army base and the parents were in the armed forces. One kid asked for a remote to use on his baby sibling. He wanted to use the mute button if you wanted their grandparents to come back, passed away, or for a family member to be cured of cancer. One wanted a dog that couldn't die. All of these are really sad except for the mute button kid. That just sounds funny. Years ago, I was in line with my 6-year nephew for his visit with Santa. When Santa asked my nephew what he wanted for Christmas, he said, "Could you get mommy and daddy some pajamas? 'Cause they don't wear any." The whole line broke up, including Santa. I used to enjoy commando sleeping until I started traveling for work. Something about being in a strange place and not wanting to oversleep. I used to constantly wake up in a panicked bewilderment, not knowing where I am, being in the wrong place. Being naked made it that much worse. So PJ pants on the road. Never was a Santa, but once while being the Easter bunny I had a kid tell me, "I wish I could poop chocolate eggs like you." I wasn't a mall Santa, but I played one of his elves. I think the worst thing a kid ever asked for was some reindeer sausage. He figured Santa could slaughter one of his reindeer for the venison. Not a mall Santa, but I was the Best Buy box for a number of holiday seasons in the early 2000s. One year we set up a chair where you could take a picture with me. Soon it turned into people just telling me what they wanted for Christmas. Sometimes I'd have a stack of $5 gift cards and I'd give them out randomly. One kid sits down and says he wants to kick me in the crotch. The suit was heavily padded and there was a good 10 inches or so from the bottom of the box to my love spuds. Being 19 and wanting to put on a good show, I said sure. Kid winds up and musters the best kick he had. I played it up even though he actually hit my thigh. I remember everyone thinking it was so funny. I loved the early holiday seasons working there. Some of my best memories came from those times. We had a fantastic management team who were like family. Then it all changed and everything went sour. Such is life, I guess. 239 FTW. After he hit you, now I have to put you on the naughty list. I wasn't Santa, but I have a good Santa story from being a kid. We used to be really poor for a long time, up until my last year of middle school, and until first grade we lived at my grandma's house, who was in a much more fortunate life situation than us. And I have a lot of memories of kids getting better presents than me and being disappointed with Christmas as a child for a while, but this was probably best Christmas I've ever had. I used to pray every night for about a year or so. This was when I was 4. For a goldfish. I did it for like 30 minutes every night when I thought everybody else was asleep, and turns out my parents had been listening, so they had hired my neighbor that happened to have the big beard, and all the other characteristics Santa might have, to dress up as Santa and wait in my grandma's house on the couch, holding the bowl of 2 goldfish that my parents had bought me. We were all coming back from going out on Christmas Eve, and my mom let me unlock the door to the house, only to see motherfucking Santa sitting on my couch with the only thing I wanted as a kid. I was the happiest kid on earth that day. My fish died when I accidentally dropped them in the garbage disposal while cleaning my fish bowl like 3 months later. I thought you opened the door to see your mother literally fricking Santa but didn't care because goldfish on the first read. Former mall Santa, even bought a professional suit because I hated the one they provided. I got a few creepy stories that involves college students and adults. Kids, a little girl no more than 5 was screaming bloody murder when it was her turn. Kids get scared of Santa, not that uncommon. Her dolled up mom was having none of her child's tantrum and the elves were pleading with her to not put the girl on my lap. She didn't and her kid instantly stopped screaming. Just had this look of pure hatred at her mom for the remainder of the photo session. I swear, I thought I was on candid camera. Before YouTube y'all. It looked so acted out. Attempting to talk to the little terror. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas. She looked at me and softly said just above a whisper, "For my mommy to die." Noped myself to a break after that one. It was the inside joke for the rest of the mall Santa season. Whispering between kids, "I want you to die." College students, one rather lonely overweight gal kept getting in line several times a week to get pictures with Santa. I was in college myself back then and I'm pretty sure she was working herself up to asking me out. Extremely shy, awkward and had some hygiene issues. She only paid for one of the photos but the elves remember seeing her throughout the week when I wasn't on shift. Apparently only got pictures with me. Adults, I was in my 20s and the perverted things the MILFs whispered into my ear while sitting on Santa's lap were definitely something for the naughty list to be sure. It became so frequent for the younger Santas to get groped, teased and molested that the elves were told to stay close when adults got their pictures taken. Elf security to be sure. Man, you know your sex life's hit a dry spell when you hit on Santa. No offense or anything, lol, I'm sure you were an awesome Santa but still. I was a Santa during 3 college years. The most memorable moment, a sad one, was a young boy who asked if I could bring him a new daddy because his had died during military service and his mommy was lonely. I saw the look of sorrow and pain in his pretty mother's face, even as she was trying to make Christmas special for her son. I have a cringy butt story about a mall Santa. I was a freshman in college at my local mall. This mall is basically dead, hardly any foot traffic at all unless it's the weekend and I see a mall Santa. I accidentally make eye contact and he waves me over. I walk on over to him smiling and he's doing the whole Santa thing. I'm around 22 at this time, and I'm playing along for fun to not make it all awkward. His elves, girls around my age, start talking to me and you can tell them and Santa were bored of and just looking for someone to talk to. Well anyway, they asked if I wanted to buy a picture with Santa. I was poor as crap at the time and was def not paying the $20 for a picture. I started to panic internally because I was like, oh crap, did they just talk to me for the last 5 minutes because they expected me to buy a picture? One of the elves says she bets my parents would love it, and that's when the horrible idea clicked in my head. I looked her in the eye and said, oh, yeah, sorry, no, my parents are dead. They aren't BTW. Dead silence from Santa and the elves. Oh. One of the elves pipes in that she lost her dad a year ago, so she knows and understands what it's like. They then talked to me for about 20 more minutes trying to make me feel better. I felt like crap the whole rest of the month and I'll still think about it sometimes and cringe hard. TLDR. I lied to Santa and his elves and told them my parents were dead. This is one of my worst memories ever. I had helped Santa for almost 20 years, but mostly for private parties and events. I did cover for him many years ago in Little Mall in Belding, Michigan. A young girl came up with a group of kids and didn't even look up at me. I asked her what was wrong. She said I didn't give her what she asked for last year and started crying. I told her I was sorry and would try again this year. She said, you can't. I asked you to stop daddy from hurting mommy and he still did. Now mommy is dead. I had absolutely nothing to say except I was so sorry. After that group of kids left, I went home sick, took off my suit and threw it away. To this day, I can hardly bear this and I still think about it every Christmas time. Not creepy and not mall Santa, but I dressed up as Santa for Halloween one year and sat on the porch handing out candy from a sack. One kid looked excited until his dad said something along the lines of, now remember, that's not the real Santa. I gave him some candy. Then I reached into the second sack and pulled out a big butt, hand-carved, wooden, monster truck and handed that to him as well. The kid thought it was great. Dad, not so much. Freaking fantastic. That dad was obviously proved wrong. Don't let him dull your shine, Santa. This is a grim one. My ex's dad owned a restaurant and I worked there part-time in my late teens, so I witnessed this. Christmas Eves were usually really busy, so to earn more money his wife came up with the idea to pretend to be Santa for a few hours on Christmas Eve and charge something like £2 per kid. This one dad came up to my ex's dad. My ex's dad was Santa, not me, and paid the money for his kid and then went to the toilet with his other child, a baby, leaving the kid with Santa. Santa asked the kid what he wanted for Christmas, and apparently the kid whispered into his ear, I want daddy to go away. He asked the kid to explain why, and apparently the dad had beaten up the mother a few hours prior and had locked her in the shed in their back garden before taking the kid and his baby sister out to eat because they had been crying hysterically and he was worried the neighbors would hear and get suspicious. Santa then asked the kid for his address and told my ex, who worked in the kitchen, to call the police. I think some police went to the house, and then some turned up at the restaurant to arrest the dad. A social worker also came to collect the kids. We never found out what happened to them after that, but it ended up in the local paper and got loads of promotion for the restaurant. That's heartbreaking. Hopefully it ended up well for the kids. My 2-year-old once asked Santa for a Christmas tree. He gave me the most disgusted look. I was horrified, because it was only the beginning of December and I was holding off until after her birthday party, the 5th of December, to put the tree up and my enormous collection of decorations for the house. I didn't want her birthday to be overshadowed by Christmas. My birthday is pretty near Christmas, 14th, and every year, my parents waited until after my birthday to put the tree up. I super appreciated it. You're doing the right thing. Also, the 5th is pretty early. That's one judgmental Santa. Not a mall Santa, but my fire department does a Santa visit to all the houses in my town. We have a few guys dress up as Santa and we drive around going house to house in the fire engines. One year when I was Santa we go to a house with a married couple and 2 kids. The woman is clearly pregnant. The daughter, about 10-12, creeped the heck out of me. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas and she looks at her, I assume stepmom, and says deadpan, "I want the baby to die." Jesus Christ, kid. It's possible that she wasn't allowed to express her frustration over a new sibling and vented it all at once. Not a Santa, but I remember when I was over at my relative's house I asked my little cousin what she wanted Santa to bring her and she said wanted boobs like her mom had. She was only about 6, so it was weird for me to hear her say that, but she was in a phase where she idolized her mom and wanted to look like her. Same hairstyle, same glasses, etc, so I guess it sorta made sense. I remember when I was a little kid, my sister asked Santa for a pony. I was next, so I asked for rat poison for the pony. Tenyomi was an edgy little butthole. That seems inefficient. Should have gone for a nice jug of pony poison. I once was Santa for the horse club my mum and sister were. I've agreed on doing it because I thought it would be fun. I don't know if it's the same elsewhere, but people here who do horse riding are usually rich people, so rich families. So these 6 and 7 years old seriously were asking for animals, such as horses, normal, or turtles. One even asked for an elephant. And at the end of the line, one kid asked for a whole zoo. High hopes for him. I said I would, but I doubt he got what he wanted. Ended up ruining the whole Santa myth. Since when I finished, the children's were still there and I shouted, "Mom, can I go now?" to their horse teacher. Not the kid, but I had an elderly lady who used a walker insist that she wanted to sit on my lap. To 20-year-old me, it was unbelievably awkward, but I let it happen. I was a helper at the Easter Bunny set one year, so not Santa, and a kid was having trouble getting up onto the bench. The dad was adamant that she be let alone to do it by herself, but there was a line and after she fell 3 times I kinda felt bad for the girl. Anyways, I picked her up and put her next to the Easter Bunny, which the dad was not a fan of. He started yelling at me and pushing me. Long story short, he eventually tried to swing at me. That's where I drew the line. I moved just out of the way and swung back and hit him right in the jaw. That was the last year I worked at that set. Too bad that wasn't caught on tape. The Easter Bunny knocking out an unruly parent is exactly the kind of video that would get huge. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.